Welcome to the GOP podcast. I'm Reuel Sample, joined by John Hinnant, candidate for North Carolina's House of Representatives. John, welcome aboard.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Reuel.
John, you are a sandwich shop owner, a real estate appraiser, a boat owner, and most importantly, a dog owner. Tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, I'm born and raised here in Wilmington. My grandfather and my father's father and my father were both commercial contractors. My mother's father was a Cuban immigrant who was an international paper salesman. Was hit by a bus when my mother was about 10. So my grandmother and her two daughters were raised down in Lake Forest Estates. My grandmother was a farmhand and no real marketable skills. And so she took in businessmen's laundry to provide for the girls. And the girls, as soon as they were old enough, they were working. My aunt is still alive up in Goldsboro, North Carolina. At one point, my mother owned a maternity and children's clothing store. My father was in construction. They split when I was about 10 years old, and I graduated from Laney High School. About 2.5 weeks after I graduated, I loaded the car, drove to God's country, and 4 years later, I graduated from Lee's McRae College up in Banner Elk, North Carolina, with a bachelor in history, and had a most wonderful experience in the mountains. Played 2 years of college soccer. We were junior college at the time, and finished 11th and 4th in my 2 years there in the nation. And got involved in student life and founded a environmental organization on campus. And my senior year, I served as student body president. And
foreshadows of running for political office.
Something like that, I guess. Yeah, it was a small school. I think our student body population was somewhere around 700 at the time that I was a senior. But it was a wonderful experience getting up in the mountains of North Carolina. We try to get back up there as often as we can. But yeah, I owned in 1998, we opened the underground sandwich shop. I designed it. I built it. I designed the menu, developed all the recipes, and operated the restaurant for about 7 years, and sold it, became a real estate appraiser. And then in my time down there, I got involved with Wilmington Downtown Inc. It's called DARE at the time, Downtown Area Revitalization Effort. In my time there, they changed the name to Wilmington Downtown Inc. In 2007, my predecessor, Susie Hamilton, had stepped down, and they were doing a national search. And I don't know, I guess the board wasn't real. I wasn't on the selection group. I wasn't on the search committee.
Mm-hmm.
I got a call from one of the search committee members, and they said, "Hey, have you thought about applying?" I said, "No, you guys are doing a national search." And I guess they just weren't happy. I'm not sure what was going on, but they asked me to apply. And my wife and I kind of have a philosophy that, when somebody says, "Hey, why don't you apply for this job?" Maybe as a courtesy, you do it. And, it was a long conversation that night. And next Monday, I submitted my resume, and was hired in May of 2007, and had a rough patch there at the beginning. But we came through that rough patch. We did a strategic plan update, and I'm proud of my efforts there. We assisted over 50 companies that located downtown, and helped over. They created or located over 500 jobs downtown, and so I felt like that was a real good accomplishment. I helped site selection on 2 hotels. The Convention Center Hotel, we did some economic studies and analysis for the RFP process to help those apply and see that a full service 200-room hotel was absolutely needed downtown. And one of our goals of our strategic plan back then was 500 hotel rooms in 5 years. And I had people look at me like I was crazy, but downtown market was so underserved with hotel rooms. And these hotels, when they open up downtown, they open up at 85% occupancy on day one. I mean, it's amazing.
That's insane.
Well, and you think about when people come to our community from out of town, where do they want to be? They either want to be on the beach or they want to be downtown.
Yeah.
And I left in 2013 to get into commercial real estate. In the last 2 years, I've been working on some of those older dated hotels along Market Street, and we've been turning some of them over and they're getting repurposed into apartments. But you have to remember Market Street or Highway 17 historically was the primary way in and out of the town.
Mhm.
And so that's where the hotel's located back then. And so I've been having a real hyper focus on those older hotels along Market Street in the last couple of years and having some success. And between now and election day, there'll be a couple of them will be up for rezoning, and there'll be a lot of media around the renewal of Market Street, the corridor, which I'm excited to be part of.
Wilmington should be extraordinarily proud of what goes on downtown. It's a beautiful city, and there's a lot of things down there, a lot of small businesses of all types that are downtown.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, one of the hallmarks of downtown is that it's the largest and oldest historic district in the state, and that was because of a lot of champions and some of my predecessors at Wilmington Downtown Inc., including Gene Merritt and Mary Gornto and Susie Hamilton. They really promoted, they really advocated, they really educated about the importance of historic preservation and protecting those older buildings, because those are the postcard memories that people, when they leave and they say, describe Wilmington, they go, oh, it's historic. And they've got this image in their head. And yeah, we got the Riverwalk and the Battleship and the bridge, but people remember those covered front porches and the flags and the flowers and the plants and the brick walls. And, you know, I could talk about downtown for hours. I really love our city. I think it's great. And I have a lot of community pride.
Well, you can see more about what John has done and what he's into on his website. But with all of that going on, John, why in the world would you get into politics and start running for state house for North Carolina?
That's a great question, and it's a great story as to why. In 2020, during the lockdowns in the spring, my music director at my church came to my front yard during the week of Easter and played about 6 songs in our front yard. And all the neighbors were like, this was so great. And there were spiritual songs and couple of pop songs, and it sparked an idea. And so we've had a concert series in our front yard, 6 weeks on Saturday night. We invited friends to come to our front yard, and we encouraged all the neighbors to have friends come to their front yard. And so for about 8 yards on either side of the street, on either side of us, people were sitting out on their front porch, and we had these concerts. And the 6th one, the last one, was on Memorial Day weekend. And the following weekend, we were kind of decompressing. We were looking at social media. And if you remember, social media was weird. The news was weird.
Everything was weird.
Everything was really weird. And you're watching preachers and parishioners get ticketed or arrested, and gym owners are getting arrested. And they shut down our daggone boat ramps. And my wife looked at me and said, one of us has got to do something. And so I said, I've been asked over the years to get involved. The GOP had been recruiting me that year. And my father was ailing. He was ill. He was older and elderly. And he died last year, a month before his 87th birthday.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But he was, it was important for me to be there in those later days. And I didn't want to be distracted with politics. And so this year, when filing was delayed or whatever happened with the lawsuits, I looked at my wife and I said, hey, there's this opportunity. We got time to put together a plan. If you think if you're still up for it. She said, let's go. So she's been my biggest, most enthusiastic and supporter and encourager. And so that's kind of why my wife asked me to. And so I've been it's really been humbling, the overwhelming amount of support that's come from this. And I've been real excited about it. And I call people and, hey, I'm running. And they go, well, it's either thank you or are you crazy? You got this successful career. Why would you distract yourself? And I was like, well, I think we can do better things in Raleigh. I think I can be effective in Raleigh, and I want to see things done for our community that have been getting ignored in the past. And so I'm real excited about it.
Nice. Well, let's talk about some of the issues that you are dealing with. We're going to talk a little bit about education, but not in the ways that we've been talking with some of our other candidates. you're a big proponent of innovation in education. What is that all about?
So I've always been a creative thinker. I've always been interested and intrigued by innovation, and I also firmly believe that education is leg one, the first priority of any economic development strategy for anybody. And if you're going to build the next economy, you have to start with education. And I think at the higher level of education, college and community college, and even in high school, we need to be finding more innovative ways to produce the modern workforce. Job training, and I tell you, there's something that I've got it on my website. I would be in favor right now of working with nonviolent offenders in the prison system to teach the trades. I mean, if anybody's tried to renovate or do home repair or build a home, you know how difficult it is to find the trades, to get them to work. I mean, and here we have a captive audience, nonviolent offenders, and if we can get them trained in the trades, then they get out. It lowers their chance of recidivism. They can go right to work. We've got people with demand. We got people who need the trades. We got tradespeople who need to hire people. The trades and construction is very much a numbers game. I can take more work if I have the people to do the job.
Yes.
So it's a very much a numbers game, and we have this opportunity to really prepare our community and our state for the economy, and prepare the workforce for the economy that we have today and the economy we're going to have tomorrow.
The guy who narrates that Alaskan fishing company who's into all this and started
Mike Rowe.
Mike Rowe, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
One of his big things, he says that we can digitize a whole bunch. And if those of you who are watching on video, that's your dog Bud.
Bubs. Short for Bubbles.
another supporter, I hope.
Yeah. He's named after a character in the HBO series The Wire.
Okay, so that's why you see John fiddling around over there. He's keeping Bubs at bay. But Mike Rowe is known for saying that you can digitize a whole bunch of things, but you can't digitalize a house. You can't digitalize water. You can't digitalize electricity. That's why you need the trades. And education takes a form in so many ways. So
nothing digital ever turned a screw.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And we can make that happen here in North Carolina.
Right. And podcast plug, Mike Rowe's, The Way I Heard It with Mike Rowe is one of the best podcasts out there. Second to this one, of course.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much. And you could find Mike Rowe as well as this podcast on any of your favorite podcast hosting platforms. Another thing that we've talked about along with education is school safety. We've seen time and time again issues about school safety, and it comes down to a variety of platforms. People are really on fire about this because we're talking about our kids, our vulnerable people, as they go into, quite frankly, a vulnerable area.
Right.
And on school safety.
Yeah. And I mentioned earlier about the historic district, and we have a lot of historic homes and historic schools. And my kids attended New Hanover. My daughter will be a senior this year. And last year she was a couple hundred feet from that shooting. And as a parent, when you receive that phone call, that panicked phone call, it really sends a scare through your soul. And I think that's really important that we provide funding so that these older schools can do some renovations to make it more secure. I think we could invest in more school resource officers. And I think we should invest in more mental health professionals for our school systems. And I want to point out that my opponent voted against additional school resource officers. She voted against more mental health professionals in our schools, and she voted against school safety improvement grants. And I, along with a lot of parents from New Hanover High School, take that personally. And my kids went through Gregory, and they did shelter in place more often than they did tornado drills. So
Unbelievable.
it's just, we've disrupted the school day because of shots fired close by. And as a result, the kids are losing the opportunity to learn, and we're not seeing what we need out of our current representative. And that's one of the reasons I'm running as well.
Yeah, it's so simple. You put trained officers in and other people who can handle these things even before they start. And our kids are safer. They don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, Congressman Budd, who's running for U.S. Senate in North Carolina, has proposed legislation in Washington to make it easier for veterans to transition into a school job, be it a teacher or security officer, school resource officer, and imagine having a veteran as a male, mentor.
Yeah.
Campus, a small campus, in a school campus.
It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. And there's common sense things that unfortunately the folks on the other side of the aisle keep voting against for some reason or another. They just keep voting it down. Let's talk about economic future. How are we going to make sure that North Carolina, New Hanover County, and the United States of America are going to grow into the country that it's supposed to be?
Well, I'll tell you, since the Republicans took over the legislature in 2011, the 2010 election is where the Republicans took over the legislature for the first time in over 100 years. They've reduced the debt by 60%. And I've given you a little bit about my background. My father, my grandfather were contractors. My mother was a small business owner at one point. She was an executive administrative assistant who grew up in poverty. And so I come from the working class, the middle class. And I think we have to put the middle class and the working class first, especially now with high inflation and these prices are still high. I mean, my wife walked in earlier and said, "Hey, chicken wings were $3.30 at some store." And that's the cheapest we've seen it in over a year. And that's not cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
Mayonnaise is $2 more a jar than it was back in January. Gas is still pushing $4 a gallon, right under $4 a gallon. It's extremely hard for working families and the middle class to kind of make ends meet right now. I mean, families are making choices now to cut the budget and avoid vacations, or they're doing staycations as opposed to traveling. So we really have to do more to make sure that families can keep more of their hard-earned money and cut taxes. And I think that's something we're going to have to not just work for, but fight for.
Republicans have a plan for that?
Yeah, the corporate tax over the next 5 years will be completely eliminated. And if you think about a business tax, a tax on a business is only passed on to the consumer.
Yeah, exactly. Corporations don't pay taxes. That's basic economics that the folks on the left don't seem to get. Companies don't pay taxes. Individuals pay taxes.
Right. And so they're going to continue to reduce the personal property tax over the next 5 years as well. And what we've seen since 2011, we're able to cut taxes. We're able to increase revenues. We're able to reduce debt. And then suddenly a left-wing media group like CNBC calls us the #1 state for business. Okay.
All right. Whatever, we'll take it. And finally, let's talk about the other big thing that you're working on is law enforcement. Is that we're seeing across the country almost a buyer's remorse in all these folks who called for defunding of police. They tried tearing apart that, frankly, thin blue line that protects us all. And they're seeing an increase in crime. We're seeing police officers retire. What are you thinking about doing about that, John?
So I want to make sure that our law enforcement officers and first responders are fully funded as best they can. In the last 3 weeks across North Carolina, we've had 7 police officers shot, 2 killed, unfortunately. Wow. And, this is a direct result of people like my opponent who signed the pledge to defund the police. And, she has to be held to account for that. It's absolutely unbelievable that she would sign that pledge. And then, now we have, and she's not mentioned anything in her social media about this. I mean, every member of the legislature that I follow on social media have been putting out notices like, hey, we thought now it's 6, now it's 7, we've had 2 dead. Hey, let's lift them up in prayer. Let's make sure we fund our law enforcement. And so I want to make sure that we are tough on crime, but we're strong. We have a strong spine when it comes to supporting our law enforcement and our first responders.
Law enforcement, they're out there, they're putting their bodies between crime and those of us who just want to be safe and free. And they're doing this quite often at very low pay. And we continue to vilify them and ignore them, disrespect them. It's got to stop.
Well, I did a ride along when I was during my time at Wilmington Downtown Inc. And I can't tell you the level of professionalism that I found with the Wilmington PD. These guys not only are they out there at 2 and 3 in the morning, and they're driving down dark streets where the public lighting is low, and addressing issues as they see them, but they're tremendously professional when they do it. I had so much respect for those guys. I had respect for them before I went, but it blew me away how professional they were in the most difficult of circumstances.
How can people get a hold of you? How can they find out more about you, John?
Certainly, yeah. The website is electjohnhinnant.com. It's the word elect. It's my name, John, JOHN HINNANT. You can email me at that website. It's info@electjohnhinnant.com. My cell phone number is 910-619-3430. And I want to close with this, Reuel. I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate the county making the investment in the podcast. I think voters and citizens in New Hanover County want somebody who's going to go to Raleigh and represent them. And that's what I seek to do. My opponent in 2019 violated House rules and really lost control over emotions and was screaming at Republicans and screaming at the speaker the more when she didn't get her way. And what's happened is she's rendered herself completely ineffective. So if there's something we need here from the state legislature, be it a road or a bridge or anything, if her name is on it, it's dead. She can't get anything done. And to give you a good example, towards the end of the short session, Ted Davis sponsored a bill for PFAS polluters pay, and it's revolving around Gen X and the Chemours. And that
big issues down here. Big issues.
And she co-sponsored it, but didn't have the courtesy to show up to the meeting while it was read into committee.
Unbelievable.
And it was audible. There was 40 or more people in the room, and it was completely audible. You could hear a representative say, if Deb Butler's name is on it, it's not going to pass. And I don't know why we would send somebody back up there if that's the way she's thought of by other members of the House of Representatives. And it's made her completely ineffective. And I feel like we can do better. And I'm willing to give it a shot. And I hope voters are willing to give me a shot. So thank you very much.
John Hinnant for North Carolina's State House Representative. What district are you representing?
It's the 18th. It covers mostly downtown, northern New Hanover County, and parts of northern part of the county on the waterway. As I like to say, almost all of 28401, a lot of 28405, all of 28411, and a little bit of 28403. So pretty big area, 17 precincts in all.
John, I know you're very, very busy. It looks like Bubs needs to go out. Thanks for being here, John.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Will.